All right, we are now live on the Fantasy Grounds Academy's Twitch stream. This will be recorded and hopefully posted on YouTube later in the week. This is G Rex or Greg Rex from the FGA. With us tonight, I have Martin, aka Trenloe from the forums. You want to go ahead and say hi, Martin?
Hi, everybody.
And then new Fantasy Grounds Academy member and converter, Pathfinder converter, DDY Sean, or just Sean. Say hi, Sean.
How's it going, everyone?
So I want to thank you guys for coming. This is the end of our Paizo month at the Fantasy Grounds Academy, one of our very last events. It was suggested by some of the faculty members that we put this on following PaizoCon at the end of May. And it's been very successful. We had over a dozen events listed throughout the month for both Pathfinder 2 and Starfinder. And it kind of coincided too, and I'll say this, I'm also the organized play rep for Smiteworks, so it was nice to have a month dedicated to Paizo to help boost future Paizo organized play attendance from our community. And we'll have links and that stuff shared here in a little bit. Before we get too far into it, I think we should start with introductions of Martin and Sean, though. Martin, I'm going to start with you. I have this might be the first time we've talked in person, and I've been with the Fantasy Grounds Academy for about 3 years, and maybe 4 or 5 years just in the Fantasy Grounds, general. But I'll do my best to introduce you, and then I'll let you correct me wherever I got wrong. So, Martin, we refer to you here at the Academy as a community developer. You're not an actual employee of Smiteworks as we understand it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yep. And you do the Pathfinder 2 rule set. I'm not sure if you do or have done anything else, but I'll let you kind of introduce your work and what you do.
Yep, so currently doing the Pathfinder 2nd edition rule set, primarily also involved with assisting and helping some of the other developers, get the Paizo official products out there. Yeah, the PF2 is probably the first kind of commercial rule set, although the rule set itself is not sold. It's included with the Fantasy Grounds license, but the core rules DLC, that's something that primarily myself and Damned produced 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. When did Pathfinder 2nd edition first come out? But I've done a lot of community stuff prior to that as well. I did quite a few OGL bestiaries for Pathfinder 1. I did a lot of development on the Fantasy Grounds Classic Star Wars, the Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars. That's really probably where I cut my teeth on most of the coding, playing around with that. And that's kind of primarily a little bit of what I've done and what I'm doing now.
Excellent. And I'll ask some questions for you about coding, and I'm sure the audience is interested in what it takes to actually get a rule set up and running. I know Damien Damned has gone a long way in helping make some tools, but we could talk about those later. And then Sean, you want to go ahead and I know you are one of the resident PF2 faculty members here at the Academy. I've gotten to know you from helping run games at the Fantasy Grounds Paizo Organized Play Game Days. But you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about how you kind of got involved.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name's Sean Montgomery. I've been a fan of the Pathfinder 2 rule set since it came out, and Fantasy Grounds I've been using for about 5 years now as well. Started running Starfinder actually on Fantasy Grounds. And I just got involved because I really like the system of Fantasy Grounds, and I was really wanting to see more of it out there. So I wanted to try to help and get more of it for people to be able to find and use. I was so impressed with some of the other mods I found, some of the drag and drop mods that Shade Raven put out there, and just the automation in general with Pathfinder 2 I like so much, and have been learning. There's still so much for me to learn, but as I'm learning it, I'm trying to put other products out there to help people figure it out and use it better as well.
Yeah, it's really kind of refreshing to see, I guess, on the Forge. I know we've had a prolific amount of mods and extensions created for D&D 5e, but now to start getting them, see them coming out for Pathfinder is really nice. And I'm going to pick your brain about the differences between, being a Forge crafter and a web store developer creator, I guess. I don't know what the terminology is there. But I'm sure maybe others will have questions about it as well.
Sure.
So we'll just kind of go back and forth between Martin and Sean here. I think I'm gonna cut to Martin. We'll do I'll do a hard one maybe. Not sure that it's a hard question, but um, what was the impetus, I guess, Martin, for you to actually decide you want to take on a full rule set yourself? Right. I mean, you worked with others before, and I know it sounded like you already had some assistance with another resident community developer, but I'll let you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think how it all came about. Really, I mean, obviously, I did quite a lot of OGL content for Pathfinder One. Did a lot of the bestiaries. There, this is before actually Smiteworks got any Paizo official actual agreement or anything. Paizo released their three main role-playing games: Pathfinder One, Pathfinder Two, Starfinder, under an OGL, and most of that material is the open game license, and so people can release it to a certain point. There is quite a lot of the product that is identified at what they call product identity, which can't be reproduced under the OGL, but basically the mechanics can. So, a bunch of NPC stat blocks that were in the bestiary, I kind of got involved with that. Wrote a parser as well that allowed people to copy and paste all of their information in and generate their NPCs, basically just copying a stat block out of a Paizo PDF and copying it in. So I kind of was doing quite a lot on the forums there. I was also doing a lot of support, just off my own bat, just getting involved, understood the application really through trial and error, and was doing a lot of support on the forums. And I'd met, the Smiteworks guys, Doug and John Gregory and Carl Pinder at Gen Con a couple of times. And basically, when Pathfinder 2 was upcoming, Doug Davison, the president of Smiteworks, reached out to me and said, would I be interested in getting involved and doing the rule set development? And so really it just snowballed from there. Did the rule set, did the core rules to get released with the official release at Gen Con for Pathfinder 2, added in the Lost Omens World Guide. But I soon realized that really doing the rule set and doing conversions was a lot of work for me. Unfortunately, I need to do the conversions to get some money, basically, because I don't get paid for the rule set, because essentially that's comes with the Fantasy Grounds license. So initially I did a lot of the conversions, but now I'm really just taking a back step and just helping people do conversions, because we have Danny Stratton doing the adventures, we have Shade Raven doing a lot of the rule books now and the Lost Omen settings, and people like Sean getting involved and doing some additional development, and we're hoping to get another PFS developer on as well to kind of just get those moving. And I'm now really in a case of I'm trying to help them. If they come up with bugs in the code or they need new code things doing, like especially we need to do a lot of code for Secrets of Magic and some for Guns and Gears, I'll make the changes in the rule set so that they can get a product that's pretty close to what Paizo are releasing.
Great. And, I was making some notes and I was writing this up. I'm going to ask one follow on, but I'm going to probably save another for after we do ask Sean a similar question. But were you proficient? I know rule sets are kind of, in Fantasy Grounds itself is based on XML Lua. Was like a native language to you, or is that something you had to learn?
Lua wasn't. XML I'd used a little bit before. I mean, XML is really, it's pretty simple. It's not really a language. It's more just kind of like a data structure, really. It wasn't specifically Lua, but it's a fairly standard structured programming language. I taught myself to program on a ZX Sinclair ZX81, 40 years ago, and I've done software engineering and things like that, so it was all pretty fairly straightforward for me to pick up.
Gotcha. And then Sean, for you, what got you involved in doing the conversion work? And I know I could speak for myself doing 5e conversion stuff. I know I don't need to know XML or Lua. The Fantasy Grounds is great. It actually handles parsing very well if you take the time to learn to do it. I'll say that. But you want to see how you got involved, Sean?
Yeah, well, I mean, I started off GMing for some players and with Starfinder, and at that point, I didn't actually know how any of the automation worked, and I ran through the whole Dead Sons campaign without really utilizing the automation or knowing how to set it up myself or how it worked under the hood at all. My background is not in programming or anything like that, so when I got into Pathfinder 2, I pretty much started doing exclusively that, and I'm also doing a lot of society play. So I was finding myself at that point actually having to convert modules so that I could run them for society play for players. So I was doing it anyway. And doing that, I started wanting more of the automation, and I was able to figure some of that out basically by deconstructing the work that Trenloe and Shaderaven did. A lot of the drag and drop modules that were available then in the forums and are out on the Forge now, and for free also. I was able to look at those and how they did the programming, and basically by looking at what they did, I've just emulated that and done some of that myself. So I'm not doing any of the under the hood stuff, but as far as setting up the automation for the modules and things like that, I do lots of that now. So
Yeah, I just brought up one of your products on the Forge, and I'm going to start copying and sharing it. To do extension work, though, to be fair, you do have to actually unpack the code to figure out what you're going to do for the manipulation. Is that correct?
not for anything I've done.
Okay.
Yeah, all this stuff I've done is the basic automation right within Fantasy Grounds. I don't do any actual programming.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think just to do an extension, yeah, you do need to at least look at the structure of the rule set to write the extension, because that is essentially overriding the underlying rule set. So you do need to unpack that a little bit. Maybe you just do a little bit of XML that changes a couple of positions of a control on a screen or changes a font or something like that. But if you want to kind of probably do a little bit more, change functionality, you're going to have to write Lua at that point.
And I did not say that there's a good spot on the forums. If I could find it, there's a good explanation and how-to guide. It might seem dated, but it actually hasn't changed, even with the Unity, on how to unpack and kind of go under the hood there. And then, we have a tremendous community. You do got guys like Martin who answer on the forums. You must check on there at least daily. Trenloe, that you practically live there.
Yeah, get up before work and get on and see what's going on and things. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, asking either at the Fantasy Grounds Academy Discord, on the main Fantasy Grounds Discord, or on the Fantasy Grounds subforums, the community, the expertise that makes themselves available is actually pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it's said so many times that I think a lot of people, when they're deciding on a virtual tabletop, they see the Fantasy Grounds community, and that attracts them to it as well. So that's certainly a big selling point for the whole community, really.
Yep. All right, so Martin, I'm going to throw you a fun one now. So I might assume that you play Pathfinder, but we don't have to talk about it. What's some other games that you like playing, whether on Fantasy Grounds or in person?
So I really like the Modiphius 2D20 system at the moment. So during COVID, I ran a Conan campaign using the Fantasy Grounds rule set. Did about 30 sessions of that, pretty much just a sandbox homegrown campaign. Everybody loved that, and I really enjoy playing that. I enjoy playing Action Cthulhu, which is a recent one that's been kind of released. Been playing Delta Green recently, a little bit of Savage Worlds Deadlands Reloaded. I really enjoy Call of Cthulhu, but I do play Pathfinder 2 as well. Haven't played Traveller for a while, played that quite a lot. In my university days, played RuneQuest a lot, so looking forward to that rule set when that comes out. I've really played a lot of different role-playing games over the years and like revisiting them or, playing the new ones that are coming out.
Right, and all of them on Fantasy Grounds? Or you in-person play still?
I do play in person quite a bit, but yeah, I play also on Fantasy Grounds.
Gotcha. And then Sean, same question. Anything other than you mentioned Starfinder? I know Pathfinder. Any other rule
Um,
sets you enjoy, whether on in person or on Fantasy Grounds?
I would say I used to kind of be a purist. Um, when I started looking at Dungeons and Dragons when I was like a little kid, that was like what I played. And I never really played it until college when I started GMing for a group, and that was when third edition came out. So I played that almost exclusively, and then actually fourth edition came out, and I really liked the fourth edition rule set. Played a lot of that. Played some Pathfinder 1, which was very similar to D&D 3.5. And lots of Starfinder. I had to take a break from gaming for a few years. I had a daughter and family stuff came up. But it's mostly been those systems, so D20 type stuff. Recently, I've been doing a lot of playtesting with some other GMs and have played a little bit of the Fallout system, the 2D20 system, like Trenloe was just saying, which is really, I've had a good time with that. Um, and that's most of my experience, I'd say.
Okay. Any do I dare ask this question? Have you guys um experienced any of the other VTTs? And I know I have issues with there's pros and cons, and then there were enough pros with Fantasy Grounds when I did my research. I came here, but I mean, are you adverse to playing on other VTTs?
I'm not averse to it. I do play. Um, Actually, the Delta Green game that I'm playing is on Roll20, and I'm playing in a Pathfinder 1 game as well with a couple of people in the RPG industry, and that's on Roll20. I mean, basically, if the GM wants to run on a certain VTT, then I'll play on that. I've never run anything on Roll20 or anything. I'll 99% of the time I'll run stuff on Fancy Grounds unless there's really not a rule set and I require something that it really requires automation or something for that rule set. A good example might be like the Starship Combat in Starfinder. If that wasn't on Fantasy Grounds and there wasn't an official rule set and everything to help with that, would I run it on Fantasy Grounds or not? I don't know. Maybe if there was something that really streamlined that and Fantasy Grounds didn't, I might consider running that on something else. But like I say, 99% of the games I run will be on Fantasy Grounds, but I'll play on another VTT. It's up to the GM to run something. I'll certainly prod them a little bit towards Fantasy Grounds, but
Yeah.
if they're not willing to go, then I'm not going to force. I'm not going to drop out of their game or anything like that.
Yeah. Understand. Sean, have you played any games on anything other than Fantasy Grounds?
So I didn't want to not try other systems. So I actually did join a campaign in Roll20. I'm playing in the Absolution or Abomination Vaults, excuse me. And it's not my favorite virtual tabletop. um, Foundry I've also played a few games in, and that one is I enjoy that one a lot more than Roll20. But Fantasy Grounds is definitely the one I prefer, and as far as running games, that's what I would choose, for myself every time.
Yeah. That's usually I hear that a lot. It's the GMs whenever they choose, and once they go Fantasy Grounds, there's really a lot of hesitancy to use anything else.
Sometimes I joke to myself now and I say, when I start running games in person, am I going to be able to do it still?
Yeah, I actually had that problem post COVID, going back to the game store, and I couldn't run a combat tracker.
Right? I'm so used to the automation now. I'd have to actually do the math and remember the effects.
Yep. Okay, so that was threw you guys a curveball. We'll go on to the next topic. Let's talk about some of our current releases. Up on the stream, I have, I got the core rulebook up, but I got the covers for the Secrets of Magic, and I know the beginner box. Martin, you kind of, I don't know if rush to get out the door was the right answer, but I know I was super happy when I got Secrets of Magic out just in time for our game days to start, and then the beginner box was a huge fan request. You want to talk about the development of these? I think it might be your two latest that are on the store. I may have missed one, but
yeah, Guns and Gears has come out.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Magic, yeah, and we've had a couple of the Lost Omens guides come out as well. But yeah, we kind of struggled towards the end of last year to get things going. I was stuck in the UK for 20 months with COVID. Due to COVID, not having COVID. And then suddenly when I could come back to the US, that all went pretty quickly, but that was really, a couple of months with running around and sorting things out that I really didn't have much time to do development. Then I got back to the US, and then my landlord threw me a curveball and said, hey, you need to get out by January. So pretty much I had 6 months where I couldn't develop any serious sit down and do conversion or coding. I'd still engage on the forums, and that takes up a lot of my time as well. And I'd write a few updates and a few bug fixes, but in terms of actually sitting down and doing stuff for conversions, I didn't have a huge amount of time to do that. Luckily, Science File Danny kept churning out the adventures, but really we had a period when we didn't really release anything to do with the core rules or the Lost Omen setting. Come 2022, things were a bit more settled down, and also Shade Raven was more available. He had some real life issues as well towards the end of last year, and so we sat down and said, right, what products are we going to develop first? What are we prioritizing? What do we need to do? And so we said, Secrets of Magic was really last year's. Kind of came out just after Gen Con, or did it even come out at Gen Con? I can't remember now. And so I said, right, let's get that done, but we really want to release it with some automation around the Eidolon. Because it is really, obviously, the Summoner and their Eidolon, they're heavily linked. They share a hit point pool, they share proficiencies, all sorts of things. So we really wanted to get that coding done. So that probably took me over a month to get the coding done, and there's still a couple of issues with the hit point synchronization that I'm working on now. And Shade Raven did, the conversion of all of the data. So we still use, for Lost Omens and core rules, the parse tool, that was released publicly years ago, and then Smiteworks took it in-house and use that for a lot of their products. So we still use that because I've written a lot of code in that specifically to the Pathfinder 2nd edition that makes it easier for us to auto-generate reference manual code. So when you have all the feats in line in the reference manual, all the spells and everything else, I've written code that auto-generates that based off the spell or the feat record and things like that. So we can, once we get the data in the correct format, we can get through and get a lot of the reference manuals, gone through fairly quickly. So, Secrets of Magic was the one that we, got out the door. Then did Guns and Gears, Book of the Dead. We really got running, myself and Shade Raven in bringing those out. Getting the beginner box done as well. That required quite a bit of code, not really around the rules, but around the different data, the slightly different data formats that the beginner box uses for the characters. Like, it doesn't have really heritages. It kind of does, but they handle them slightly differently, and it has a little bit of character options, but not much. And then if you suddenly decide to, you then change to the core rules, then we need to handle how that kind of goes through and how that calculates those, because certainly the attributes are handled slightly differently. So there's a lot of code to do with that kind of held it up in the end once we got going again. But really wanted to get the beginner box out in time for the Dave Middleton Memorial Con. And I think in the end we missed it by a week. and things, but got that out, and now we're full speed ahead. The just looking at my list here, we've recently released the Grand Bazaar, the Morangi Expanse, the Monsters of Myth, the Pathfinder Society Guide, in Lost Omens setting. I'm hoping Knights of Last War might get released tomorrow. I don't know if they're going to release stuff during the big summer sale or not. I don't know, but that's pretty much ready for release, and that'll be out soon. And Abomination Vaults, the complete, the new hardback compilation, that's hopefully going to be released in the next couple of weeks as well. And we're pretty much trying to get ahead of the game that we're going to release Dark Archive when the actual PDS released. That's the plan, and we're hoping to do that for the upcoming kind of travel guides and Impossible Lands, Lost Omens things, and also get Absalon City of Lost Omens converted. So we're pretty much catching up now, which is great because we did slip behind for a few months there.
Now, you mentioned a few things. I'm going to come back to some of the stuff like the parser and reference manual because I got some questions about it. But let's hit on the summer sale, right? Summer sale is just starting, I believe, tomorrow or today. I know I've seen the promotion work going out.
It started a couple of days ago. It's ongoing.
Is it ongoing? Okay, so it's not the normal Tuesday cycle then, so that's good. Right, it coincides with the Steam summer sale, I believe, and you get a lot of stuff for, I think, 20 to 25% off now.
Yeah.
Including licenses. So do want to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's really good. And I think the rule is that they don't have anything in the sale that's been released in the last 2 months. So I think Guns and Gears was just released 2 months ago, so that's actually in the sale. So that's pretty amazing that that's kind of in the sale there. So there's a lot of, basically everything except Book of the Dead, I think, and maybe the Grand Bazaar and Pathfinder Society Lost Omens guides. They're the three that aren't in the sale, but everything else, if you want to, and the sale coincides with your bundles. So if you are using the bundles, you can combine those two discounts and things, and pick up a bunch of stuff. And of course, if you've already got the PDFs, that gets taken off as well, so you can really pick them up. Or if you haven't got the PDFs, buy the thing in the sale, and then you get the PDF on Paizo. So.
Yeah, actually, that may be worth. I just may bring that up right now. Just talking to the synchronization. Let me go. Let's use this story. So, for those that don't know, that are viewing or going to watch the recording, the Paizo has a great relationship with Smiteworks, where if you purchase the content on the Paizo website with the PDF, you get that directly discounted on your purchase from Fantasy Grounds, but you have to do the account synchronization. And there's this called the Paizo account synchronization, and it goes through and you set it all up here. You can see my Greg Rex, but once you get logged in, it'll walk you through doing the whole thing and then syncing your account. I'm not going to show off my personal information walking through it, but and then just like Martin said, if you buy it on Fantasy Grounds, it's a two-way street. Then you get the PDF from the Paizo on their web store. That's correct, right? I said that correctly?
Yeah, you have to do it between the Fantasy Grounds web store. I don't think there's a synchronization on Steam. But yeah, so if you don't already have the PDF and you buy it on Fantasy Grounds, you have the discounts, whatever, for the sale or for bundling, and then you synchronize back to Paizo, and then it'll suddenly appear in your downloads on Paizo. So certainly, as far as we're concerned, it's great if you're thinking of getting the PDF and the Fantasy Grounds thing, that you buy it on the Fantasy Grounds store. Then that gives Fantasy Grounds a little bit more money, from that. Things, and then it synchronizes through. Obviously, if we haven't released on Fantasy Grounds yet and you really want to see the PDF and it's already been released, then that's our fault for not having it out in time. Then that's cool, buying the PDF on Paizo and then getting it on Fantasy Grounds later, and then you get the cost of the PDF subtracted from your Paizo, your Fantasy Grounds purchase.
Yep.
I don't think there's any other publisher that do that. I think it's only Paizo. So,
yeah, the only ones I'm aware of.
Yeah.
And then, Sean, let's go to you. I got some of your stuff actually already ready to go that I'm going to share up here. drop this here in chats. I'll get them across. Get these out. Now you've been doing the adventures. You're doing Pathfinder Society intro adventures and bounties. I don't know if this is everything, but you want to go ahead and talk about some of the stuff you've been getting out?
Yeah, so I am, I didn't actually mention before, but I am a venture agent for my area. So that means I'm supposed to be running a certain amount of games every month to promote Pathfinder Society play. And so because of that, I was already doing module conversion to run the games. And so I reached out to say, how do I actually get these out there for more people to use? Because I noticed they weren't all available for me to just purchase. I was having to do the conversions myself. So I figured if I could maybe figure out a way to step up and make those available to everyone, that would help everyone out. So I reached out, I got a hold of the right people to kind of get actually, I wouldn't say licensed, but an independent contractor type agreement to do the publishing of those modules uh, through Smiteworks. So I'm converting them officially now and putting those out. I've mostly done the bounties and a couple. I don't think quests. Only done one of the longer adventures so far, but I plan on doing a bunch of those soon after I get all the bounties caught up. So
There you go. Just getting these up on the stream. I'm gonna flip flop some stuff around. Yeah, I'm showing these off.
yeah, I just submitted 2 more bounties that will hopefully be available soon. Bounty 15 and 16. And then I think I'll probably try to work on 19 next. Then I'd like to try to get all of the seasonal adventures caught up after that, which is about 4 times as much work.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna. I got one question we got from Laroon, and maybe Evo's typing in. But how in the world did you and Shade Raven keep up with the Paizo release deluge? You know, they've been just like 5e. They've been coming out very rapid pace recently.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you look at how much Wizards release every year, it's probably a quarter of what Paizo released for Pathfinder Second Edition. Yeah, there's certain, when your life's busy and there's more stuff coming out, it sometimes is. It's like, oh, really? And like I'm saying, earlier on, I think that definitely was that period where we just had to put it on hold for a while. As just frustrating as it was. I mean, what was really cool was a few people in the community put out PRD versions of like the summoner and the mages and the spells and things, so people could actually still kind of work and use some of the more player-based stuff from Secrets of Magic, being the main example that took us quite a while to get out in the end. But yeah, it does sometimes. I mean, certainly, every now and again we get the release schedule from Paizo, and we look through it and we says, right, how are we going to do this? How are we going to prioritize this? And sometimes we don't get the digital files from Paizo until very close to the release date, for reasons I have no idea about. That's a big black hole, and so it does. Sometimes it can get pretty overwhelming, especially coding and bug fixing when you're trying to get things changed to get the products out, like Secrets of Magic and the Beginner Box data changes, like I mentioned earlier. But ultimately, I mean, we do it for the love of it. Yes, we do get a little bit of commission for it, but it certainly doesn't give us anywhere near minimum wage in terms of the hours that we commit to it. But it kind of feeds my Kickstarter habit, which is a good thing.
Yeah, we got a couple of questions coming in. If you guys want to start asking questions, this is going to open up to open Q&A here in a second. But I did promise to get into the business side. I said that was going to be the questions, and we're pretty much during time, and you're kind of touching the topic there, Martin. So I'll bring it up. I've got some links I'm going to share. But you're commission based, everything being part of the community developer team, not in house with Smiteworks. We're super tidy. For instance, I don't think he started the Starfinder rule set. He now just maintains and updates it. He's a salaried employee, so it doesn't matter how many he sells. Doug's paying him whatever he's going to get.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
you, on the other hand, and Sean and any of the other part of the Pathfinder 2 team and most of the other rule sets on Fantasy Grounds it seems like you kind of do it for the love of the game more than anything. I've got to know some publishers, thanks to the Fantasy Grounds Academy, and it seems like most of the money you're going to make from a product's going to be in the first 2 weeks. That's where 90% of the income comes from. Is that fair to say? Do you notice that as a dev?
Yeah, there's certainly some things that do. Yeah, first month release definitely. I think the bundles help to keep things kind of going and keep people buying the products, and certainly sales. I mean, I've seen 4 times the number of products being sold in the last few days of the summer sale. That I'm responsible for. So definitely, but yeah, it is, things do peak when they first come out and then they trail off, and depending how kind of vital they are to running the games, they'll have a regular sale value, like the core rulebook, the advanced player's guide. They're the 2 that just keep selling. Then you have the ancestry guide and the character guide and things as well that kind of chug along. The bestiary sells. Bestiary 2 tends to sell about half that Bestiary 1 does. Bestiary 3 sells about half of what Bestiary 2 does as well. So those are kind of, but they just chug along with some low level sales every month basically. But yeah, the peak is when they're first released.
Yeah, and Sean, I know you've been doing this long. If you noticed that too.
Honestly, I I'm not quite sure exactly how to look at my sales.
Yeah, well,
I've only been actually putting out modules for about, I guess it's 3.5 months now. So
yeah,
very recently, and I'm still figuring out pieces of the process.
Yeah, you have to hit up James Holloway, who's about to bring up.
Yes.
He'll give you information in your developer dashboard, and you'll see sales there. You'll even see what you get from Steam. And then for those that don't know, if you buy something from Steam at a discount, the developer, that's a reduction in their commission. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's interesting how that all relates. I did post links. I'm starting to post links on. They're very transparent about they being Smiteworks. Doug Davison about what you get commission based for sales. It's an adventure. It's you get a little bit less than if it was a full set, full automated rule book or something like that. But the entire process kind of is managed by James Holloway and his team. He's part of the community developer team there at Smiteworks. And if you're interested in doing it, you're gonna follow the link there, and you're gonna essentially email James, and he'll get you going. I don't know if that was your path you did, Sean. I know that was mine.
That is exactly it. He's been wonderful about answering my questions to help me figure out how the whole process works too. So
yeah, it's great. So if it sounds, I mean, I just want to say you're not going to get rich developing adventure. I could say this from my adventures, at least. I don't know, Trenloe, maybe if this goes long enough and Pathfinder 2 doesn't ever get replaced by Paizo with Pathfinder 3, eventually it might pay for your economic input at time, but I don't know if you want to hold your breath on it.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly a couple of products that, I look at the amount of time that I spent on them and it's like, ooh, that's kind of okay now, and things. But yeah, I mean, I could not retire and keep going, on just the products that I get from you. Even if I suddenly was working 40 hours a day on things, yeah, it really is. You're doing it for the love of the game, wanting to see the game that you love on the VTT that you love. I mean, essentially, and giving to the community as well, and allowing people to continue to play, on Fantasy Grounds.
Yeah. Anything you guys think is worth mentioning that I didn't ask in regards to that? I don't know if I gave it enough time to be fair, but
yeah. I mean, I suppose there's 2 different approaches now with the Forge. So I kind of mentioned earlier about Paizo products being released under the OGL. So, there's a bunch of people who've released products in the Forge, a lot of them for free, but they're released under the OGL. You can release products into the Forge, and as long as it's under the OGL, if it's a Paizo product, or if it's another product that a third-party publisher that is kind of semi under the OGL and releasing their own stuff, if you have their permission, you can release products into the Forge. So there's certainly a number of products now in the Forge, not only for PF2 but for other rule sets that are pretty much done with the blessing of the publisher or even by the publisher. I think Castles and Crusades is a good example. Old School Essentials is a good example. So certainly that's a way of releasing things, and you get more commission in the Forge than you do doing a full-on official Fantasy Grounds store conversions, because there's the licensing is different, and and it's really the amount of commission you get depends on the agreement with the end publisher. But yeah, there's certainly a bunch of things that you can, if you see a third-party publisher adventure, you think that's really cool, reach out to the publisher saying, hey, I want to put this on Fantasy Grounds, is that okay? Then you've got to have your chat with the publisher whether they want to cut or whatever, and they might want to go the Forge route, or they might want to go the full get an official agreement with Smiteworks route. But those are really the two main options. Obviously for D&D 5th edition, stuff that uses Wizards kind of proprietary information, you've got to do that in DM's Guild. If you're doing 5th edition stuff using Wizards material, you've got to do your Fantasy Grounds has got to be put in DM's Guild. So those are really the three main areas.
That's awesome. Thanks for covering all that. I was not ready to talk about the Forge. Yeah, so we got some. We're in the final 15 minutes, and we got some more questions coming in. So I got some I'll save of my own till the end. I'll start asking what we see coming in. So going all the way back up. So it was from Evo for Trenloe. You said you may have missed it. Evil Evolution was actually given a Starfinder class when we started this, so you did kind of miss this, but we didn't get into detail. What are some resources you could recommend for getting into extensions and rule set coding, if any?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I was pretty good. I know computer programming, so picking up the Lua and the XML was fairly straightforward for me. There are certainly in the scripting link in the wiki, there is a link directly to the version of Lua that Fantasy Grounds used, but that's really just a programming reference. It doesn't really teach you how to program in Lua. There is a very good book like Lua in 24 hours that you can get. It's available on Amazon, and I think it's available in PDF or Mobi or something like that format as an ebook format. So if you want to be taken through, the beginning to end of learning to program in Lua, that might be, quite a good book to go to get you going with Lua. But then you've got the big step of learning the Fantasy Grounds API and learning the structure of the rule set. If you're building your own, you're going to probably want to build it on top of Core RPG or maybe more Core. If you're writing extensions, then you've got to, learn how to all fit that together and learn the code structure of the individual rule set that you're trying to change. So I see Daniel's actually on, and Daniel's done a great extension that's really providing a lot of new functionality for the Pathfinder 2nd edition rule set. It's his GM enhancement extension that's available through the Forge, and so I'm sure he spent many hours learning the structure of the rule set and how to change that and how to do what he's trying to do all the various additional pieces of functionality that he's done in his extension. And you can literally spend hundreds of hours working on this if you're doing a lot of in-depth functionality, whether it's an extension or whether it's kind of writing your own rule set. I think if you're looking at writing your own rule set that you can build on top of Core RPG, you're looking at least 400 hours, and that's even once you're fairly competent Lua and things like that. If you're adjusting an existing rule set with an extension, it really depends on exactly what you're trying to do and how much code you have to do to get that to work.
Right. I think he said further down here he made $200 with his extension, but that's with 1,000 installs. So that's obviously it's nice. It's nice to get the money, but he says it'll pay for the next release. So that's great. From Sir Carey, for running actual society games on Fantasy Grounds, what is considered the best practice for submitting chronicle sheets? I may take this, and then Martin and Sean, if you want to do anything, add to it. The Fantasy Grounds adventures, they do come with the image of a chronicle sheet. If you do not own the PDF, I do not believe you are required to purchase the PDF to submit the chronicle. I've recommended to my group to take a snip, if you're a Windows user, an image, a screenshot, and do your best to fill it out manually that way from the image. I know we do things like the Chronicles RPG, where autofills, it'll read in and parse in the PDF, and you email it to your players and get it submitted to your event organizer. But I don't feel, and I run the program for Smiteworks, that you have to have the PDF as long as you have the image of the chronicle. But Sean and Martin, if you want to have any opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, I was a venture lieutenant years ago, and when we first started doing PFS on Fantasy Grounds, there was a big debate about, what was the official way to do the chronicle sheet and things like that. And I think certainly, that's moved on from there. That's, it's really no longer as controlled as it was. Back then, or had restrictions on exactly how you can do it. I mean, ultimately, if you buy the Fantasy Grounds PFS scenario, you're paying. It's the one exception that the society products, you don't get the PDF with them. And likewise, if you own the PDF, you don't get that discounted from the Fantasy Grounds product. So you're essentially paying Paizo for the purchase of that product, and so you have an image of the, of the chronicle sheet. So maybe I'm not the right person to say this because I'm no longer directly involved with organized play. But as from what I've been reading, I think it's fine if you take, a snip of that image and write the relevant data in. I think it's still, you shouldn't be giving a blank sheet out. To the players. You should at least be, filling out the various fields that you're required to fill out as covered in the Pathfinder Society Guide.
I would just want to add, if you have a local venture agent that you can reach out to, and you're looking for the actual PDF to get a cleaner copy instead of just taking a snip from Fantasy Grounds of the chronicle sheet, they should be able to provide those to you if you have someone like that you can reach out to. If you have your own copy of the PDF, obviously you can get it right from there. Personally, I used to take the PDF and edit it and send them out to people from there, which ended up being, a bit of work. And since then, I've been using a quick shout out to RPG Chronicles, which is amazingly simplifying all of that chronicle work. And with that actually uses the code that you'll be able to see from the PDF, or actually from Fantasy Grounds, even from the Chronicle picture, to be able to send those out through RPG Chronicles.
I'll see if I can't get a link to RPG Chronicles when we're answering our next question.
I know that's a bit off topic, but
no, I mean, I think that's a great thing to say. I couldn't remember if you needed to upload the PDF or where you got the code from. I've used it a couple of times recently, and I couldn't remember exactly what you do. But yeah, so you'll have access to that code from the image within Fantasy Grounds, and you can go and put it in there. And I mean, it's great. It gets the players to put in their numbers and things like that, and then you can generate it from there. It's a really great resource.
All right, so going back, maybe some more information about running The best chronicles. There we go. Sorry if Evo answered some of that question too in a response. All right, so from Sir Carey, can Pathfinder Infinite, Starfinder Infinite drive-through RPG be used for Paizo material like DM's Guild is for WotC? You guys familiar with that? The drive-through RPG programs there for the Infinite?
I haven't looked at the full in-depth information about what, in terms of Paizo intellectual property, outside of the OGL that you can use in there. So yeah, I'm not that familiar with that, unfortunately.
I am not either. I apologize.
Actually, Evo, how about are you with us? That you may have that answer.
Yeah, I am here. As far as I know, the Starfinder Infinite and Pathfinder Infinite stuff, if it comes from Paizo directly, you are allowed to use it under the community use license, which means you have to make sure to register your project, which I have done in one case. Other than that, the stuff that other people are releasing on Starfinder, Pathfinder Infinite are under the OGL. So if they declare their product as product identity, you can't use it. And if they declare it's part of OGL, you can use it just like any other Paizo product.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay, some more coming through. Oh, yep, we got the RPGchronicles.net already linked now. Thank you so much. And Sir Carey, I've actually, when I first started getting into being an event organizer, this Pittsburgh group is one of the websites I use for reference. Them in a group in Sonoma. I think it's up to your event organizer if they want to use this PDF or this the Google Sheet tracker. At the end of the day, as long as the chronicle information is submitted to the Paizo Organized Play website, by the GM or the event organizer, and the players get the appropriate information they need. And I know I'm kind of entering a gray area. I think all parties are happy with that, but we need to make sure it gets reported, and B, that the players get the chronicle, information from the chronicle that they need for their character advancement and progression. We could probably spend a whole symposium on going over organized play and the ethical dilemmas of how we do some of the stuff we do for Paizo, but not in a bad way. Just what is what's good and what's a gray area.
Well, I'm happy to sit in for that one too if you need me.
All right. I'll get you and I'll get Stephen in too. All right, coming down to the last 3 minutes. We got any more questions coming in? You're welcome to unmute. It's a small group. If you want to ask in person, you don't have to type it out. Some questions coming in. So I'm going to ask you, Martin, this is one of my saved questions. You've done some tremendous work on the Pathfinder 2 rule set. First rule set I touched that had a character wizard that I didn't realize was a character wizard until I was pointed out, Greg does this walks you through the character creation. It's a wizard. But you said you did the NPC Parser. I've been actually playing with the 5e1 that's on the test. Have you? Was that from code that you did, or is that different?
That was for Pathfinder First Edition. That was actually a Windows.net application that just allowed you to copy and paste. But I essentially used that to do the OGL and actually the first 3 bestiaries that were for Pathfinder 1. So no, certainly we're looking at that. The new releases that are coming out of the base, core RPG is trying to make it easier to import data. So certainly we're keeping an eye on that. Already, one of the community guys, Darrenan, has a Pathfinder 2nd Edition kind of creature parser, which runs within the rule set itself, and you copy and paste a stat block in, and it parses that out. So that's a free extension available on the Forge. So that's a great tool as well. And I mentioned that I've kind of spent a lot of time doing programming for parse for our conversions. We're going to be slowly moving away from parse and trying to do everything within Fantasy Grounds. That's going to take time because we do have a lot of time-saving code in parse. But certainly, now you can create reference manuals in Fantasy Grounds that you couldn't do until recently, and certainly there'll be more tools like what is coming out now, that Creature Parser, Creature Importer for 5e that we'll have for Pathfinder 2nd Edition over time as well. Probably will do easier things like feats and spells and things like that first, especially with the stuff that I'm planning to do in Release 19. We'll probably work around import tools for those, because that'll be new stuff. And then, that'll be a forever project for the next few years to, slowly update the rule set to allow more and more to be done within Fantasy Grounds without having to, right-click, create new record, fill out all the data. I mean, that's one of the things I've really tried to do, is you can create every record through the interface in Fantasy Grounds. I think there's a couple of minor things that you can't. You've got to do a quick edit in the XML, but basically, you can create ancestries, classes, feats, spells, everything through the interface. That was one of the things I really wanted to do. It's not great for doing lots of them, because you got to fill out all the individual fields, but you can create that data yourself.
Okay, I think we got time for one last question, and it's a great one coming from Battlein. So if you guys want to cap this off and tell the audience what we have in store for us coming out in Pathfinder 2 that you guys are currently working on. What are some things we should be excited for?
I apologize. I may not have heard you. I think, Lee, you have a hot mic.
Yeah, I got Lee muted.
Yep. So yeah, sorry, Greg, what's the question?
Oh, sorry. So the last question coming from Battlein. What's coming up for the rule set? What do you have in the pipeline, guys?
Yeah, so I've been talking about Release 19 for a year, and unfortunately my plans for it to get it going earlier this year haven't quite come to fruition, because we were slow on Secrets of Magic and everything else, but we're catching up on that side now. So there's quite a big normal Fantasy Grounds release and testing at the moment. That's going to come out in a couple of weeks, I believe. I think they're looking at the middle of July to get that out. That is causing some changes that I've got to do in the rule set, and once that comes out, I really want to get Release 19 out there. So there's going to be a number of things in Release 19 that are kind of stuff that are nice to haves, and that'll improve things like tracking afflictions, finally automating the dying process, a few things like that. But the big thing for me is that we're going to actually have activities formalized as individual records. So an activity is anything that takes an action, be that a free action, a reaction, 1, 2, or 3 actions. So things like you have a feat that has an activity related to it. There'll be an actual area in the character sheet that'll be similar to where you go for weapons and spells now, but it'll be specifically designed around activities. It'll have all the activities for your skills, so grapple, trip, acrobatics checks, all sorts of things in there detailing the activities, be they encounter activities or actually downtime or exploration activities. As you can go, and there'll be, if you're making a trip attempt, I think it's against somebody's reflex DC, you target them and it'll work out their reflex DC, it'll work out all of their effects, and you'll roll your athletics check, and it'll work out whether your usual things, critical failure, success, critical success. That's going to be a lot of work, 1, to do all the coding, and 2, to actually associate all those action records, those activity records, with all the skills, all the feats, all the spells, all the magic items, all the the class abilities, ancestry abilities, heritage abilities, and things like that. So certainly there's 2 big areas to that, but that's the thing that I want to get into testing hopefully within the next month, start releasing the data. So we'll probably start testing around some first level feats and the activities related to skills, and then we'll expand that from that. There's two main areas to that. There's actually the functionality, making it work, and there's how it looks. And I've got a few ideas around that, and probably that's something I'm just really going to want feedback from people who are testing it, not just testing the functionality, but testing what it looks like. Because I really want to make that the main area that most people are going to go to for their activities. Outside of casting spells or attacking with weapons, they'll go to the activities tab, and they'll be able to click on their favorites, so they'll be at the top. Then everything else will be kind of cascaded down in kind of folders with skills, spells, feats, class abilities, things like that, and then people can go and access and actually see what they can do and how many actions it's going to take them.
That's exciting stuff. That's taking this up to the next level. Sean, you got anything coming out in the pipeline you're excited about?
Well, again, most of the work I'm doing is module conversion for society play. As I said, I think bounties 15 and 16 will be coming out shortly. I'm not sure exactly when, but they've been submitted and waiting for a little testing and approval. And hopefully I'll have some time over this summer to get a bunch more out there. So definitely look for those. And if you're interested in doing publishing, do reach out. As he said, Josh is a great resource for that. I think you put a link in there for him, right?
Yep, I'll get it. I got
James.
the link. James. Yeah, I've got the link to the forum post on it from Doug. But it does refer to James Holloway. Yep.
On a side note, on behalf of all of us that use this product regularly, thank you for all the work that you have put in on this, Trenloe.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's nice when you know that people are using it and enjoying it, and get involved. It's great.
Loving it, and that work you're doing that will be coming out sounds amazing. Won't have to have all of my abilities as spells anymore.
I mean, that won't be going away. I'm not going to overwrite that stuff. So if you've all set it up and you like it that way now, you don't have to use the new stuff. But it'll be another tab called Activities, and hopefully it'll probably go through testing for 2 or 3 months, I'm sure. Iterating through that and making it work and giving people the features that they kind of want within that as well. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it, but I'm also pretty nervous. So we'll see.
Well, it sounds amazing.
Hopefully it will be.
All right, everybody, we are at a little over an hour. So as promised to our guests, we're going to wrap it up here. You're welcome to stick around. Laroon, if you're still here, you want to do an outro for us on behalf of the Fantasy Grounds Academy? I'm not putting you on the spot.
Sure. Thanks everyone for showing up. Martin, I don't know how early it is there, but imagine it's like 5 in the morning.
Oh no, I'm back in Colorado, so it's not too bad.
Oh, I didn't know you were stateside yet. So everyone, thanks for showing up to this event. We will be having this uploaded onto YouTube later. We are starting a Pathfinder 2 playlist, which also includes some of the things that Martin and Shade Raven have put out over the months. So hopefully over time we'll get more content for Pathfinder, because there's just not enough of it out there. Sean and I were working earlier this year on getting him set up and acquainted with streaming and such, instead of actually doing the tutorial. So we want to eventually continue that when we can. But thanks everyone for coming. And next month we're doing our Founders Day weekend. So hopefully I see a Pathfinder or a Starfinder game in there somewhere, hopefully.
All right.
All right, guys. So from my behalf, Greg here, Martin, Sean, thanks so much and taking my questions, even the hard ones. And I really appreciate your time and all the effort you guys do for the community. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and thanks for having us. Yeah, it's great.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm going to end the stream now. For those that are still here in Discord, you're welcome to stick around. But the stream is ending in 3 seconds. So thank you, everybody.